A farm salmon is a predator. In the wild, it hunts and eats other fish, and yet humans raise it by the millions of tons. Now look at the rest of the meat aisle. Beef, chicken, pork, lamb, turkey. Most of our everyday land meat comes from animals that feed low on the food chain. So if humans clearly have no problem eating predators, why don't we raise wolves, lions, or other hunters for meat? The obvious answers, danger, taste, culture, all sound right, but each one starts to fall apart the moment you test it, because there's a hidden cost inside every predator. You can't see it in the meat. You only see it when you ask a different question. What did this animal have to eat before we could eat it? And salmon is the exception that gives the answer away. This isn't really a story about disgust or taboo. It's a story about arithmetic, energy, body heat, and what a farm can actually afford. Most people assume the answer is cultural. Predator meat sounds unappetizing, maybe a little wrong, so we never bothered. Reasonable assumption. It just doesn't survive contact with what humans actually eat. Tuna is a predator, so is cod, so is octopus, squid, sea bass, and much of the seafood counter. Crocodile is farmed and sold. Bear has been eaten across the northern hemisphere for centuries. Humans have never had a general problem with eating things that hunt. The gap isn't in our appetite, it's in our farms. And once you see why, the strange pattern on your dinner plate starts to make sense. So keep two ideas separate as we go, because almost every confusing part of this comes from mixing them up. What's biologically possible and what's practical at scale. Those are not the same question, and the second one has been quietly running the show for 10,000 years. Start with the energy. Every time one animal eats another, most of the calories vanish. Burned to move, breathe, stay warm, repair tissue. Only a small fraction, often somewhere near a tenth, ends up as new body mass. Feed a predator, and you're paying for a whole extra round of that loss. You're not buying meat. You're buying meat that already ate meat. There's a nice way to measure where humans actually sit in that stack. Ecologists have scored the global human diet on the same trophic scale they use for wildlife, and the number that came out was around 2.2, roughly the level of an anchovy. We think of ourselves as the top of the food chain. Our diet says we're a bulk plant eater with a taste for animals that feed lower down. The apex predator story is about our weapons. Our farms tell a different one. You can see the same logic in the numbers farmers actually track. A modern broiler chicken puts on about a kilogram of weight for a few kilograms of feed. Cheap grain grown in a field, converted fast. A cow needs considerably more, though much of what it eats is grass we couldn't digest anyway. Now try that with an animal that requires animal protein. Your feed isn't grain. Your feed is another farm. That's the wall, not squeamishness, cost. But if cost is the answer, one obvious problem remains: salmon. Because salmon somehow found a way around it. Farm salmon used to eat a lot of wild-caught fish, and the ratio was ugly. Several kilos of small fish in for a kilo of salmon out. Over roughly the last 30 years, the industry rebuilt the feed around plant proteins and oils, and published estimates for that ratio have fallen dramatically, in some analyses to around 1-to-1. A predator was talked into a mostly vegetarian diet. That trick doesn't work on everything. A domestic cat is an obligate carnivore. Its body can't manufacture certain compounds, like taurine, and has to take them in ready-made from animal tissue. Some predators are flexible, others are locked in. So maybe diet isn't the whole obstacle. Maybe it's temperament. Predators are aggressive, territorial, dangerous in crowds. That sounds like the perfect explanation, except we have an experiment for that. In 1959, a Soviet research team began breeding silver foxes on a farm in Siberia, selecting for one trait only: tolerance of humans. Not size, not coat, not appetite, just calmness near a hand. Within a few dozen generations, they had foxes that approached people, whined for attention, and behaved in ways nobody had planned. Floppier ears, curlier tails, changed hormone profiles. A wild predator, reshaped in under a human lifetime. Temperament was never the locked door. Somebody opened it on purpose and filmed the whole thing. And notice what those foxes were still not used for. Meat. Because after all that work, you'd still be feeding a warm-blooded carnivore. And this is where the real dividing line finally appears. Look at two predators humans actually do farm at meaningful scale: salmon and crocodiles. They have almost nothing in common except one thing. Neither of them makes its own body heat. A cold-blooded animal doesn't spend most of its food budget staying warm. It borrows warmth from its environment and puts a far larger share of every meal into growth. So the crocodile survives the arithmetic that kills the idea of a wolf farm, and the salmon survives it in water. The line running through your dinner plate isn't predator versus prey. It's how much of the feed gets burned before it becomes food. Wrapped around that are two smaller penalties. Predators concentrate whatever their prey accumulated, which is why mercury advisories often focus on long-lived hunting fish rather than small fish lower on the food chain. And meat eaters and scavengers can carry heavier parasite risks. The roundworm behind trichinolosis is one reason wild bear meat has to be handled carefully. Here's what nobody can measure cleanly. We can't run the counterfactual. There's no society that had cheap, safe, abundant predator meat and then decided how it felt about eating it. The economics ruled the option out so early that whatever cultural feeling we have about it grew up on the far side of a decision that was already made. Our taste and our thermodynamics point the same direction, and no experiment can separate them now. So the answer isn't that predators are forbidden, it's that endothermic predators, the warm ones, are expensive, and everything else follows from that. Culture arrived later and made the invoice feel like a preference. Except in one room of the house, because we do pay the predator price, willingly, every single day. It's in the bowl on the kitchen floor. That tin of cat food contains chicken. The same chicken grown in the same shed on the same cheap grain, passed up one more rung of the food chain at full cost for an animal we have no intention of eating. We solved the predator problem by refusing to farm them for meat. And then we quietly reopened it for the ones we love. If you had to bet, which factor do you think kept warm-blooded predators off the menu first? The feed cost or the disease risk? I'm curious which way people lean, because the evidence genuinely allows both. And if you like animal questions that turn out to have unglamorous, measurable answers, there'll be more of them here.